That's number one. Number two, I want to talk a little bit about the introduction, and it may be connected. It's in the same parasha, so it must be somehow. And that is this unusual halacha we get, and it is unusual, so much so that it's known among the Jewish people as a chok, as a statute of lo tavashel gidi b'chelev imo, not to cook a gidi, a kid, in its mother's milk. What exactly is this mitzvah? We know we have laws of kashrut. You can't eat a chazir, you can't eat a pig, you can't eat most of the insects, besides the chagav, besides the locust as a side point. Grasshopper, right? The locust, red locust within the grasshopper, mishpacha. It is kosher. There was a dispute among the Simanim, the Yemenites. They're right, the Yemenites are my father-in-law, should live and be well. He was in the army, he was officer in the Israeli army, and he said he was on base. And there was when he was in the army, there was I don't know what the collective noun is, but a flock, right? A swarm, thank you, of locusts that came in to the base. And they were Yemenites, they took the Yemenites, so they came in, right? They took them straight to the army, yashar. They cut their payot off, unfortunately. This was very, very common. They cut the payot off, right? Because the Yemenites had a very strong tradition. And he said, this Yemenite picks up a chagav, right? He makes a shakol niye bivaro, live, bites his head off. My father-in-law, who is the most Ashkenazi, yashar, yeki you're ever going to meet, he says, my stomach turned. Did that Yemenite do the right thing? Absolutely. In his Mesorah, it doesn't need to be killed. All right? It's a cold-blooded animal. Does not need shechita. It can be ill. You pick it up. You bite its head off. This is halakha. And you can eat it. No problem. Absolutely no problem. By the way, is a chagav, right? Is it milchik or fleshik? Is it basar or is it chalav? Trick question is part of. Very, very good. Very, very good. If, however, that's the only insect that I know of you can eat. If, however, it was basari, obviously it would need shechita, and you would have to wait between meat and milk. Where does this idea of waiting between meat and milk comes from? So it's a very unusual thing. We have things that are not kosher, and we have things that are kosher. And then we have this incredible halakha, which is something which is meat and milk, that is kasher, that you cannot mix together, based upon this pasuk that's mentioned in the Torah. And this is the most chamor, the most strictest of all the laws of kashrut. Why? Why is this so chamor? If you want to deal in non-kosher meat and sell it, you are allowed to do that. Actually, how do the kosher Jewish agencies make most of their money? They're not going to talk about it. I'll tell you a trade secret. They sell it to the goyim. What? This animal was found to have a terefa, right? Something that was not kosher inside it. The goyim can eat it, no problem. You can get better. You want to feed it to your dogs, no problem. Tishloch lekelev. However, when it comes to meat and milk that are mixed together, you can get no hana. There are 3 lavin, the 3 isurim, based upon the 3 times this pasuk is mentioned in the Torah. What are the 3 isurim? Not only can you not eat it, it's asur ba'achila, it's also asur ba'bishul, right? So I'm not going to eat it. But I go to a fancy school in Israel, and they have meat and milk in that school. I say Israel, because most like in Israel, the meat is kosher, the milk is kosher. It's more of a problem there than it would be with non-kosher meat and non-kosher milk, which don't eat the Rabbanan. So the real problem, Basa B'chalav, is mostly in Israel, right? Because that's where they have a kosher meat and kosher milk. So you cannot even cook it together. But even if you don't eat it, and you don't cook it, you can't even benefit from it. You can't feed it to your animals. Those are the 3 isurim when it comes to non-kosher meat. You can benefit from it, as we said, but not so. What is going on over here? Why is this particular isur so strong? And I want to throw something else over here. In the same pasuk that it mentions, Lo tavashel gidi b'chalev imo, when it says this, it talks about bikurim that are brought to the Beit HaMikdash in the same pasuk. It says, I'll read the words, Reshit b'kurei admatcha tavi bet Adonai Elohecha lo tavshal giri b'chalei v'mo. Bring bikurim. What's that doing in the same pasuk? What's it got to do with meat and milk? I'm in my kitchen with kosher meat, kosher milk, right? I'm going to set up a whole separate station. I got separate dishwashers. I got separate sinks. I'm going to wait between eating meat and milk, right? We do that as well, right? You know that. Why, right? Why do we wait between milk and meat? Most people don't realize why they're doing it. I'll tell you right now. You should know this. It's actually a machloket, Rashi and the Rambam. Rashi says because when you eat the meat, there is a coating of fat that gets inside the mouth, and if you have milk right after it, the two are going to mix up, and you're going to swallow them. And the problem is not the digestion; it's the swallowing. Therefore, there needs to be a separation of suda le suda, from meal to meal. The Rambam says no. The reason we wait between meat and milk is not the greasy film, it's there are fibers that enter and will go inside the teeth, and therefore you need to wait the amount of time those fibers in your mouth are no longer considered meat. How long is that? Each community has their own minhagim, right? The Zohar and the Mishnah Berurah does bring down that 1 hour actually is sufficient. And there are Jews, Dutch Jews in Amsterdam. I was actually in Amsterdam this past summer. I have a very good friend of mine, Hanan Hertzberger, one of the pillars of the community. He made a big birthday party, so he flew my wife in, and he made a big party. And right after they had meat, they had a milk station, and they said only for Dutch Jews, because it was Chalavi. We Sephardim, we wait 6 hours. It's either 1 hour or 6 hours. That's really what it is. Now, 3 is a later invention, Nathan. It's a later invention. That comes from Germany, Bnei Ashkenaz. They said people will have meat for lunch and then maybe a milchik dinner, and in the wintertime there's a 3-hour difference, but that's a much later thing. Really, mi'ikar, it's 1 hour or it's 6 hours. Some say in the 6th hour, they learn after the Rambam, they'll wait 5 hours and a bit, or the majority of the 6th hour is 5.5 and a bit. That's where that whole thing comes from, okay? But it's nothing to do with digestion. It's to do with at what point are those fibers or that film inside your mouth. By the way, the Gemara brings down one of the Rabbanim who says he used to wait. He says, I am vinegar compared to my father who was wine. My father would wait 24 hours between meat and milk. He's like, fine, I'm vinegar. I only wait from one meal to the next meal. Misuda le suda, right? Very strict. What is going on over here? Why are we so scared? What's happening? So the answer is, I got no clue. Because Rashi tells us it's a chok. We have different types of mitzvot. We have mishpatim. These are laws in the Torah that there is a rational explanation for. Do not steal, right? Do not kill. And these are the laws that the parasha speaks of. Mishpatim is the name of the parasha. These laws that we understand, we can fathom. There's a rationale that goes with these mitzvot. But there are some mitzvot that are called chukim. A chok, there is no rational explanation for. That's what Rashi tells us. Comes along the Ramban, and he says, that's true. We don't know the reason. It's beyond our comprehension. But I'm going to give you a reason anyway. Classic Ramban, right? And he says, Al Pi Kabbalah, we do have an explanation. But this is actually referenced in the Gemara, so it's not purely Kabbalah. And he says, I'll tell you what's going on over here. And this is a possible understanding. He says that you'll notice there is a common trait among non-kosher animals. What is that trait? Achzari. They are cruel. They are cruel. Sharks, lions, tigers, eagles. He actually mentions this in the context of birds, but it's going to work right through. They attack. They are the predator. They're carnivores. They are the predator, right? They prey on other animals. When you eat those things, it's going to be metamtem et alev. It blocks your heart mechochma, from wisdom. It's going to block your heart. Only the Jewish people, only those who are given the Torah. Non-Jewish people, they don't have this mitzvah. Eat whatever they want to do. The Jewish people are meant to have a sensitive neshama. And these animals, which is why what we eat are docile animals. We eat the goat and the sheep and the cow. Yeah, we eat animals that are docile, that are the prey. Because somehow Actually, nowadays we kind of get this idea a bit more. I don't like when people say, you are what you eat. Because I eat chickens, and I'm not a chicken. I eat turkeys, I'm not a turkey. Right? I eat beef, right? But I'm not a cow. So you can't say you are what you eat, but you can say what you eat becomes who you are. That you can say. Right? The meat that you ingest somehow becomes part of your personality. We know that nowadays it's almost understandable. The food you eat affects your mental condition. Right? Stay away from that food. Right? We're having this big thing now. Right? Suddenly this Kennedy gets in. He's like, don't eat seed oils. It's going to affect your body. Suddenly we're starting your mental health. We're starting to appreciate that the food doesn't just affect your body. It affects your mind as well. We've been saying this for thousands of years. There is a direct correlation between what we eat and how it impacts us. So that is the Ramban, and that is a very famous drasha when it comes to Metamet Alev. Maybe that's why it's a chok, because the Torah does not talk about the neshama in that sense. It just gives you the halachot, and that's the end of it. So it's beyond our comprehension. Says the Rambam, Maimonides. He says, I'll tell you what's happening over here. He says, when it comes to these halachot, it's true there are chukim. We don't know. But he says that there are nations that used to, as a form of avodah zarah, mix meat and milk together. Fascinating. And he mentions a source for it. We're not sure. Sadan, whatever his name was, he mentioned some, we're not too sure exactly what's going on. But somehow, when it came to avodah zarah, they used to mix meat and milk together. There's this combination. He says that's why the Torah says, it's a controversial idea. And many people don't like this, Rambam. Because you're saying the whole reason for this mitzvah is neged those who do avodah zarah, idol worship. But that's what he says, and the Rambam has big shoulders, right? And that's what he says. He actually says korbanot were given to the Jewish people, sacrifices, because they had a desire for korbanot from the non-Jewish, the forbidden korbanot, and therefore Hashem did this as a favor. That's also controversial. And that's why he says you'll see the allocation of this mitzvah is put right after Bikurim, in the same pasuk, because Bikurim is bringing, right, this offering in the Beit HaMikdash. So the Torah is like, yeah, do that and don't do this. Don't mix up meat and milk together. Somehow, the forbidden nature of it is related to idol worship, and it's going to affect the neshama of the person when it comes to idol worship